So here we are again.
Yeah.
Porch interview number 2. I'm Lynda Ann, and this is Patrick, and we're here to discuss racial profiling in America and experiences that our black brothers and sisters in America have. So, Patrick, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Good, good. It's a little warm here in Tucson, Arizona, so bear with us. We may start to glisten here halfway through this chat, but that's okay. Anyway, so we had one of our subscribers who was interested in learning about, and that was Brad. Thank you, Brad, for the suggestion. Learning about what your parents and mentors told you about white people, police officers, things of that nature. So we're going to first touch on that. We're going to discuss that. So if you want to go ahead and...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess initially I would probably say that there more than likely was never really a conversation in regards to, white people specifically. In the church that I grew up in, there were white people there and there were also black people there. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so
Okay.
it's not a religion based on any, a majority of anybody, I don't think.
Okay.
But there was never really a discussion in regards to the difference. It was something that it was clear and visible because I said in my area there's a majority of black people versus white people.
Okay.
So it wasn't even really a discussion. As far as the police, it was again not even necessarily because an officer was white or black or anything like that. It was just more so knowing like you have to respect these guys. If they ask you something or they tell you to do something, cooperate. Just to avoid any problems because I think in seeing like the officers that arrested and killed George Floyd, like that's a good representation of what you would see in police. There was 2 white guys, there was a black guy, and there was an Asian guy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what you would see in my area.
Okay.
There are a lot of black police officers.
What's the county?
PG County.
PG County, okay.
Yeah. There are a lot of white officers, but there are a lot of black officers. You may not see as many Spanish officers. I don't know about now because it's been 7 years since I've been in that area.
Okay.
But the conversation, like I said, is more so just about don't resist because they have the power to say whatever at the end of the day, and it becomes a situation of your word versus theirs because I didn't grow up in the era of body cameras, and so before body cameras the same things were happening, you just didn't necessarily talk about it. And that kind of just led me into a position and just like not necessarily opposing the police, but wanting to avoid any and all interaction. I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not against you, but I don't want any interaction with you, whether positive or negative. I'm not interested.
Okay. So you weren't really like informed by your folks, or aunties or grandparents or anything about white people, or like that all white people were racist or anything like that.
No, it was something that it happened when it happened, and again, because I grew up in that majority black area, it's apparent, and it's not even to say like, oh, all white people are like this. You treat those people that are doing those things individually as those individuals because
Right.
at the same time it's a reverse thing. If you grow up any area you grow up in, if there's a majority of one person there anything that you see that happens as crime in your neighborhood or your area is going to happen from the people that are in your area. So it might be Spanish people in one area,
Mm-hmm.
white people in another, black people in another. And so I can't say that, by seeing crime and things that happen in my area, that all the youngsters that grew up around there are all criminals. And so that's kind of how it would be to say, oh, because this one white person or two or three white people said this or did this,
Mm-hmm.
then all white people are like that. So
Right.
we never really had that conversation because I don't think anybody in my family ever generalized it as all white people
Okay.
are like this.
That's great. That's great. So, clearly y'all subscribe to the idea that it's best to judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Martin Luther King Jr., thank you very much, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother grew up in that era,
Ah.
So, and she grew up in New York and then moved to the D.C. area.
So grateful for him in our
And,
history.
and we were the only people in our family that lived in Maryland. Everybody else was either in New York or South Carolina or further down south or further up north.
Okay.
So there weren't any aunties and uncles there on a regular basis that really had influence. When we did link up with those people, it was because we went to see them or they came to see us. But the biggest influences were right there in my house, and my mom worked for the federal government. My grandmother worked for the federal government. My stepdad worked for a sheet metal company, and in all of those places, you saw black, white, brown, everything. So, because it's such a melting pot, it would be it would be hard to really single out and be like, oh, this white,
Right,
one
it was
white person
experiential.
I had my personal experiences that I knew shaped kind of my views, but even then, one of my godmothers is white, so
Okay.
I've never had any problems with white people, and it's never been expressed to me that you should have problems with somebody just because of the color of their skin.
That's great. That's great. So hopefully, Brad, we answered your question, and now we're going to move on to. You said you had a couple of stories you wanted to share, so that's what this is about. Sharing personal experiences or, those of your loved ones.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think you said something about your mother.
Oh yeah, even before that, since we were just talking about experiences that I had that
Yeah.
shaped the ideas, I was working for, I'll give two past job experiences.
Okay.
So I was working for a company pretty well known called Dunbar Armored. While I was working there, before I got hired there, one of my requests in being hired was that I didn't have to work Friday after sundown and Saturday before sundown, because I would practice the 7-day Adventist religion and we don't work during those hours,
Okay.
which is a standard thing. Usually for religious beliefs, you can have certain
Right. There's certain time
rights.
periods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got hired with that information being known. The guy that ended up hiring me ended up leaving, and the guy that took over for him didn't agree that I should be able to have that time.
Oh.
So what they started doing was they started giving me trucks that were not necessarily working that well, and the route that I normally did was from Upper Marlboro, Maryland, out to Ocean City and Delaware, and that was there all day and back in the day. So
Sure.
we would start at 6 a.m. We would start. We probably
Wow.
wouldn't get back until 8:30.
Oh, that's a
9
long
o'clock.
day, Patrick.
Yeah, and so I drove the truck all day. So whenever there was
Wow.
an issue, you would have to report it. So I started having issues with the truck. I was reporting it to the mechanic. The mechanic was openly and outright racist.
Really? Was he
So it
white?
was- yeah. So it was just nothing you could. He's been there longer. He's got seniority. Don't have to interact with him. You fill out a slip. You put it in the box.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
Just
it.
stick to yourself.
Yeah. So And I only know that he's racist just from things that I had heard him say.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna go into that because
Wow.
he's not a big part of the picture.
Right, exactly.
Um,
We're not going to rent any space
yeah.
in our heads for him or give him any airtime.
So he, I had filled out a few slips to get the truck fixed. One of the things that needed to be fixed was the air conditioning because when you're in an armored truck, you can't roll down the windows. And me being somebody that has asthma, it's like if we're out in the summertime and I'm driving a truck and there's no air conditioning, all you have is like these two fans that are about
Oh,
this
yeah.
big. I'm just like
Blowing dust around.
That doesn't work.
Particles.
There's a little hatch in the top that you can open, but it's got like bars or something, so you're protected. So 3 or 4 times I asked the mechanic to fix the air conditioning through the slips. I then went to the manager of the site and expressed it to him. He said he would take care of it. 3 more times I put in slips and it still didn't get fixed.
Wow.
Went back to the manager. He said he would take care of it. So then I called the corporate office and I filed a complaint. And so the next day when I came into work, they put me in a truck that had basically they put me in a small truck with a load size for a bigger truck. And having to cross the Bay Bridge, your truck has to be
Weighed.
balanced
On all the axles,
so
yeah.
that it's not like tipping because that bridge kind of sways sometimes.
Right.
So me and my partner both were like, "This is gonna be crazy. How are we gonna do this?" So my partner was white, but he wasn't really trying to complain. So not to complain, but it's like I brought up the facts to the vault manager, who was a black guy. He was the most senior person in charge. I'm like, "Hey man, listen."
Is this at the company where you worked before
This
you
is
left?
This is at Dunbar Armored still.
Right, so it was at the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we left out, it was
Right,
like
okay.
in the garage.
Okay, gotcha.
So I went to the guy. His name was Joe, and I said, "Hey man, listen. You've done this job. This truck is too small for what you're giving us to take out, and the truck isn't going to be balanced." And he's like, "It's out of my hands. This is what I was told to do." And so I'm just like, "Okay, well what can I do?" He's like, "Load the truck up, go on your route." And so I'm like, I don't feel safe I'm the driver.
Right.
I don't feel safe taking it out because if something happens, then, we could have avoided this now.
Right.
And so he's
You were
like,
being
well,
safe. I mean, you were doing what you should have done. Yeah.
And so he called up the head guy, and the guy was like, basically tell him he can clock out away from me, or he can just go home. And so I was like, all right, I'll clock out and I'll go up to the front office and wait for him. That, no problem, because I'm not going to put myself and my partner in jeopardy.
No.
Knowing that we're already off balance.
Good for you.
So when the guy got there, he came in. They asked me to step outside. Him and it's a white guy, and there's a black guy that was like the assistant manager. He brought me outside. Immediately, he got red in the face and he started yelling and getting mad because I had called the corporate office and I had filed a complaint. And so they reached out, and that day the truck was in the bay to get the air conditioning fixed.
Good.
But I also got fired because they said basically I lied. I never filled out any slips to have the truck fixed. I never talked to him about the situation, and I should have done those things before going over him to reach out to the corporate office. So I was like, you're calling me as a grown-ass man a liar in my face, and you're also like all of that. And you're red and you're angry and you're doing all of that, but I was just here trying to protect myself and my fellow employees. So I really don't understand how you're going to fire me when even at the same time when I brought up the issue, you're the one that said clock out and wait for me in the front, or just clock out and go home. So I waited for you so we could discuss it, and now you're firing me, but for what? And so he said he was firing me for abandoning my job. And I'm like, you told me to clock out and wait for you, and I haven't left, so how did I abandon it? He was like, straight up, if I can't fire you for that, then I'll fire you for insubordination because you wouldn't load the stuff on the truck and take the route out. And so I got upset, and so I started flipping out. And so that's when the black guy stepped in and was just like, just chill out, it's not that serious. And so now I got these two grown men honing in on me, and so I was ready to fight, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so they're
the unfairness of it.
yeah, they're calling the police now. And so I'm like, so I'm cussing at them. And what are they calling the police for? And I called my mom because that was my
Your go-to.
That was my go-to.
Yeah.
So she's just like, I hear you, I understand, leave. So I flipped them off and I left.
Yeah.
And so
They deserve to be flipped off.
yeah, and so I just
As
felt
far as
like,
I'm concerned.
I'm just like, you know, we're underpaid in a position where they, at the same time, before all of that, I had taken the shooting range test, and so as a driver, you only get paid like $13 an hour, while you're taking out millions of dollars and putting your life on the line for them. But you
Right.
cannot carry a gun until you get certified and you pass certain tests. I passed the test. I passed the physical test with flying colors, as they told me, but the state approved me, but the company and the manager would not allow me to get a gun. And why?
Did your cab
was-
partner that day have a gun?
Yeah, everybody pretty much had them. They just wouldn't allow me to get mine. And so,
So was this guy who fired you, the white guy? Was he the one you said you knew he was a blatant racist because you had
no,
heard
no,
him
no, that
say
was the
things?
mechanic.
That was the mechanic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he.
But it's safe to say that there's a possibility.
If I come to you and I complain that the mechanic's not fixing the issue,
Right.
and we're going out here and it's creating a hazard for my health and possibly anybody else's health that rides with me, and I go to you twice and complain, I follow through on all the steps, and then I take the necessary precautions to keep myself safe. And you never, maybe he did have the conversation with the guy, and the guy was just like, hey, fuck you, I'm not fixing it. I don't know. That's not my business.
Do you feel like this guy racially profiled you, the mechanic?
No, I think that honestly the mechanic was just like, I'm not fixing it because it's the air conditioner, you got fans.
Okay. So what about the big boss who fired you, who the assistant supervisor
Yeah,
was?
he's the
was
one.
black,
He
right?
had it.
You said?
The assistant supervisor was black.
Okay.
He was a black white guy, but
Okay.
but the
Like a white black guy.
yeah. But the manager, he's the one that had it out for me from the time that he took the position, and he was trying to press me to work specifically on Friday evenings and Saturdays when I told
white
him,
guy?
like, yeah, I'm like, I'll work every other day, 6 days a week, Sunday through Friday, anytime you want me to, but I can't work during these times. And so that was like, he was putting that as a
So there was
strike
something
against
about
me
you he didn't really like.
from the jump.
From the get-go.
Yeah. His name was Dave Heline. I'll never forget that guy.
Yeah. There are some people
He
whose
had
names
it out
you never
for me
forget.
from when the guy that retired, when he was still there, he was pressing him to make me work on these days.
Okay.
So once he got in power, he then started coming at me directly. And so, that was that experience.
Okay.
And then,
But you're not quite sure that was like all a racially motivated sort of situation, or?
yeah, it would be like assuming, and it's one of those things that how I was telling you
I
before.
mean, you didn't
when
do
we were
anything
talking.
wrong, from
Exactly.
what you're describing to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we were talking before, in a personal conversation, I'm like, a lot of times black people don't bring up the fact that something happened to me because I'm black, because we don't want people to jump and be like, oh, you're just pulling the race card.
Yeah, the race
You're
card,
playing
yeah.
the race card. But it's like, in that situation, I mean, it seems like it could have been that, because I don't know what else I did wrong.
There was something about you he didn't like. He didn't like
Yeah.
your good looks. You were outshining him.
So there was something, and then not letting me get a gun essentially limited me to only being a driver for the company as long as I worked there, because you can't move up until you're able to have a gun.
So he inhibited
Yeah.
your ability to progress in your.
And even with that, I
And-
continued to work. I continued to do my job.
Yep.
I was getting paid okay money. I wasn't feeling safe about it, but I continued doing it. Oh well. And then the next job that, this was the job that I had before I actually moved to Arizona. So it was a place called Marlowe Auto Body, and it's
What did you do there?
I was a porter.
Okay.
I cleaned up the shop. I went around to different enterprise locations and I picked up damaged vehicles and I brought them back to the shop to so that they could be repaired. I worked there for a little while and then I ended up getting promoted and I managed the porters. So I basically gave the schedules and told them where to go and all of that kind of stuff. So the pay was terrible, but I needed a job. I just moved back. It was my first job. I moved back to Maryland from Alabama.
Oh, right.
And so I was just kind of like in between, and I ended up staying there for over a year. But the whole time, the guy that was like the guy that owned the business, his father worked for the company in some capacities, but he basically was the one that hired the porters, and he was like outright racist. Every day was a you people, and you people are doing this, and I need you people to do that. Hey, get the car, guy. And even though we got shirts with like the names.
Were you all black,
right here,
by the way?
Yeah, all the porters were black.
And he called you people?
You people was regular. It was regular.
You people.
But again, like at this point, I was over 20 years old, over 21 years old. I'm probably like 25 or 26 years old at that point. So it wasn't something that was new to me. The language automatically is recognizable for a racist. Okay, cool. So I still have to work regardless of you being who you are. I still need a paycheck. And at this point, I'm not trying to work in fast food, and this is what I have right now.
May I interject just for a moment and say to you, so he referred to you as like you people, okay? So he was the father of the owner of the business, right? So he was, I'm going to say, quite a bit older.
A bit older.
Maybe even my age or something.
Much older than you. Much older.
Because I'm 60.
At that time, he was probably like 75.
Oh, at that time. Okay, so listen.
Dead
so
now.
he wasn't. Yeah, my generation, really was a lot better with race relations. But you had a lot of the rural people who are still like massive racists, right? I mean, I just can't handle it. But the generation before us, like I'm a baby boomer, but like say people who are 10, 15, 15 years older than me and older, those are the old white dudes that Oprah was referring to that one day that actually kind of upset me. But then when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. But it really isn't true that, people die off and the racism dies off, because that's not how it works, because those people teach their offspring these things, and they, indoctrinate them into all of this racism. So, but what I wanted to say about that, you people, was that he probably meant it as a disrespect, not because he was doing it on purpose, just because that's how he felt about you guys, and that's just how he said it, right? It was just a matter of fact. But there are terms that I know in the past that I've used that I didn't realize was insensitive to, particularly black men, like the word boy, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, I used to call my brother boy. Like, boy, come here.
I call my kids boy.
Whatever. Yeah. So.
It's the tone.
Right. Exactly.
You're a police officer. Hey, get out the car, boy, and you see that I have a beard. I probably look older than you. Yeah. You're being disrespectful.
Okay, so it's a matter of circumstance then. The circumstance, okay, because there are things that I know that I've learned, tremendously or significantly over the years. From, say for instance, a person I know who's got a mixed son, who, taught me, a few of these things, and my black friends who just, the nature of our relationship was such that I learned a lot of things from them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were there to teach me. It wasn't their job. It was my job to be interested enough to try and understand. And so that's not an easy process, and it takes years, and I'm still learning, of course. But I just wanted to sort of throw that in there because I know there are those of you out there who probably use a lot of terms that you think are okay, and you think, oh, what's wrong with these people? One of the things that I hear a lot of is that, I didn't have any slaves. People just need to get over this. Why can't we just like move on? I mean, everything's fine the way it is. Why can't we just move on? And that always surprises me. It's like, really? You think everything's fine the way it is? Wow. Okay. And then I think about George Floyd and so many other people. So many other people. Breonna Taylor. No one's been arrested in her death as of yet.
It's all about proximity.
Well, and that young lady was sleeping in bed with her partner, and these people came into her apartment. I don't know if y'all know about this, but they came. This was in Kentucky, right? Kentucky or Tennessee?
Kentucky.
Yeah, I came into her apartment, thinking that it was an apartment where they needed to be to serve a warrant. I mean, without even supposedly announcing themselves, they like battery rammed the door and came in, and of course her partner, got his gun because he thought they were being house invaded, and they shot her up, and they killed her, and she's a rising star. I mean, not that matters because every life matters. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean if you're working on a PhD or a doctorate or anything like that your life is more valuable. Thank you. It just means that she was right there, at the beginning of her life, and she was really doing great things.
She was a first responder, so it's like,
yeah,
the people that put those,
we have one
first responders,
we have one less first responder.
She was an EMT.
Right, she already was an EMT.
While they were kicking down the door,
she could have been a doctor. You know what I'm saying?
They already had arrested the guy that they had the warrant for. So that's where the major problem comes in.
So, I guess one of our questions today is going to be, why hasn't someone been arrested in the killing of Breonna Taylor? There you go. So, thank you for allowing me to interject.
Oh yeah,
we're going to go back to this job you were talking about at the Enterprise.
Oh yeah,
Is it Enterprise you said?
Marlowe Auto Body.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't know why I was thinking Enterprise.
Oh, because I said we picked up the cars, damaged cars for Enterprise.
Oh, that's right.
But so Joe would do stuff like that, and he would also at the same time he knew that basically the people that were porters were people that were in between jobs or in positions where they had records and couldn't necessarily get a good job.
Oh, right. So he's going to hold that over your head.
So one of the things he would do is, hey, I need my grass cut. Who wants to come to my house and cut grass this weekend?
So that was this guy, the owner or the dad?
The dad. Oh, I need my house painted. Who's coming to do my shutters this weekend?
Oh my goodness.
And certain people would jump at the opportunity, but then they would do it and he would be like, here's $5. It's like,
what?
Yeah, so it was pretty funny.
Oh, that's not funny at all.
I mean, it's the only way you can really look at it versus getting upset or letting it frustrate me is just, I didn't put myself in the position to work
you
for
were
you
smart,
to be slaved out. And people that did it and did it repetitively, that's funny to me.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
So
I see your point.
I ended up getting, that won't even have to go any further than that. But yeah, so that was that experience in that job. And
okay.
Basically from that point, I wanted to move up, but they basically told me that they didn't have any room for me to become an estimator for the body shop because they had enough people whilst they were hiring.
They were looking for the right people.
2 people.
You probably would not have been willing to be part of a criminal enterprise, and it sounds to me like they were a little bit of a criminal enterprise, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
It's possible.
Who knows? But yeah, so that was
that's my first.
That was that. Oh, so a lot of my experiences when it comes to negativity and like white people is it's not necessarily even with the police. Mine has been more so with
that's good to know
with work. But in regards to the police, so I am the child. Both of my parents, mother and father, are both convicted felons.
Okay.
And it's not like something to glorify or anything like that.
It is what it is.
Yeah, that's where
I'm not
we
gonna judge
stand.
your parents.
My dad,
We all make
more
mistakes.
so rightfully than my mom. My dad was convicted for some stuff when I don't even know what age. I think I may have visited him with my grandmother one time while he was in jail, but
Okay.
he was away for a while, and we honestly never really had a relationship, and that's where he stands.
And you had
He's
a stepfather.
free man now. Yeah, I had a stepfather. He's a free man now, so he's not like he's been in jail for 10 years or anything like that. I think
Right.
it was like 5 or 6 years, maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But as an adult, living on my own, like I said, my mom worked for the federal government. She worked for the State Department, and she was a timekeeper. And so there were one day I got a phone call from a random number, and when I answered the phone, it was the U.S. Marshals, and they're like, "Do you know Kim Jones?" "Yeah, that's my mother. Where is she?" And so I'm just like, "Who is this?" "It's the U.S. Marshals. We're looking for her. She got a warrant for her arrest."
Oh my
"Where is
goodness.
she?" I'm just like,
And you're at home?
me? No, I was. I don't even know where I was. I wasn't living with my mother though. So I kind of like looked at the phone and looked at the number and I hung up. Just like, this must be a scam. So then I called my brother, and him and my sister had gotten phone calls from U.S. Marshals.
Wow.
And so then I called my mom, her and my stepdad were actually on their annual vacation up in Massanutten. And so I told her what they had told me, and she's like, "Yeah, I got the call. We're packing up to come home so I can turn myself in." So she did that. We all went with her to the U.S. Marshal's office so she could turn herself in and find out, like, what the hell's going on.
Right?
So basically what they said is from 2012 to, I believe, 2015 or 16, they said she was part of a conspiracy to defraud the government of $100,000.
What?
It's not even a whole lot of money. But her being a timekeeper, there were two of them, and because they worked overtime, their supervisor had authorized them to be able to sign off on each other's timesheets.
Okay.
So my mom was going to work. I know she was, because during those times I may have actually gone with her to work on the weekends.
Okay.
Which is when she would do the extra time.
Okay.
And she's always said and admitted she actually did work the time. So they said that during that time, neither my mom or the other woman that was a timekeeper were actually going in. They were just signing off on each other's timesheets to say that they were working these hours. What it ended up being was the other lady wasn't doing any of her time. She was writing the hours in and then presenting it to my mom. Because they caught up with her first, she ran through a story and said that basically my mom had masterminded the whole
Oh
thing.
my gosh, okay.
And told her to do these things so that they could both benefit from this extra time. And so she took a plea deal, and then they brought all of that,
Onto your
all of
mother.
the charges onto my mom.
When in
And
fact
so
your mother was working the hours. Well, they
She
could
was
prove
working.
that though.
Well, the people that they could prove it, but it seemed like they didn't want to, and because my mom didn't have the money to afford a lawyer,
It's always about that, isn't it?
they just basically railroaded her and was like, they had about 20 charges, and was like, no, they had 10 charges, and was like, each of these are like worth 20 years apiece. So unless you plead guilty, you can either plead guilty and take house arrest for the next, I think it was like 6 years, or you can fight it, and then we're gonna charge you 20 years per each of these
Oh,
10
they always
charges.
do that too, don't they?
So she pled guilty. She had people in the church, lots of family members, and all types of people write letters of reference for her. Um, you know, she said, like, go back, and it's a government building, like, look at the cameras, you can see, like, I actually was there working the time. Talk to the guards, talk to the supervisor who approved us to be able to sign off on each other's timesheets, because basically that person had retired, I think may have passed away, I'm not sure, but they couldn't confirm that that supervisor had given them the permission to be able to do that.
Okay.
So that was another charge that they were trying to throw on her, because now.
So was the other woman involved in this? Was she black or white?
She was black.
She was black. Okay.
So that set my mom down.
And your mom is black, right?
Yeah, because she had been working for the government at that point for about 18 years.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to jeopardize that.
Yeah, so she'd been working for them for 18 years.
And she just trusted this other woman?
Yeah, they were friends. They went to each other's houses. Me and my brother and sister knew her.
Okay.
What
happened to her?
Nobody really knows. My mom, I'll be honest with you, I wanted to go hunt her down. But my mom asked me specifically not to do anything, and so I didn't.
Right.
My mom just recently, in the past 2 years, that restitution that she had to pay, because basically it's like they were charged with the 100,000, but they each had to pay back 100,000. So
okay.
I don't know how that worked out, but so the government got 200,000 for them for the 100,000 that they supposedly tried to steal. And so my mom had basically, after that, she had to take a job at Starbucks, because now she's a convicted felon. She can't get a job with the government. She can't really get any good type of job.
Did she lose her
pension?
She lost her pension?
Yeah, because they told her basically, you can quit or we can fire you. And so she didn't want to have the termination on her record, as well as the now being a convicted felon, with the reason being that she apparently stole money from the government. So she quit, and that cut her out of those benefits. And so she working random jobs until the point where she moved out here and moved out to Phoenix. And honestly, I said that they just dropped the restitution, because basically part of the terms was, if one of the parties, out of the two defendants, were to receive inheritance or a large lump sum of money, it would immediately go to paying that off for both parties. So one day my mom called me and was like, "You'll never believe this, but the bill's been paid. I don't owe any more money." And so it could only be that the other lady
right
came into some money, and the government took that. So I'm happy. So, but she still is a convicted felon.
Okay.
And so that, more so out of any experience I've ever had, which I've had some bad experiences with police, that is the one that probably gave me the most.
Was most impactful.
Yeah, it was the
your
most
mother,
impactful.
And it was
coming from my mom.
Like, railroaded, and no one wanted to investigate it to find out the truth.
Exactly.
And she had, there was proof in the pudding there.
There's plenty
but
of
they
ways
didn't
for
want
you to
to
investigate.
eat the pudding.
But why do that? Why put in the work? Because then that just clears her. It gives them more work to.
What they did was they created a timeline, like you have to do it now. That's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's an immediate need. They do that all the time, and it's manipulation. She didn't have time to launch a proper defense.
Or
really.
money, yeah.
She didn't, because they were going to fast track her.
She had two public defenders who were kind of like baffled at the fact that she was just literally with no effort drug into something,
and
because
I'm really sorry that
they caught up with
to
this
your
other
mother.
lady,
That's
and
really
she
terrible.
just threw everything on my mom. So even the public defenders were just like, we don't know how to defend against this except you taking a plea deal.
Well, um, so, we're at 40 minutes. We probably should, wrap it up, right? So is there anything at the end here that we want to touch on?
Just think that, like we were saying earlier, people just have to let their judgments for people be based on what they see for individuals.
Right.
Versus letting that impact a whole community of people, because it's not everybody.
I guess what I will say also is I've been seeing people share things, like that poor little boy who was shot in the head by that crazed neighbor's son.
Mm-hmm.
That was heinous. I mean, I know you agree. You've got 3 young children.
Yeah. I think that's terrible.
It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. But what I'm seeing them do is, and they're all white people, sharing things like, "Where's the media attention for this?
Yeah.
Poor little boy. Sorry that the media hasn't given you any attention." Things like this, and I'm like, do you even understand how racist you sound right now?
It shouldn't be a comparison.
It's not. It shouldn't be at all. First of all, it's a black man killing a 5-year-old child. The man was probably out of his mind on drugs and mentally ill, unmedicated, unfortunately, and that does happen. So,
from what I read,
but to compare it, to try to bring it into the whole Black Lives Matter,
yeah.
I mean, what do you? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing it.
From what I read, they said that the
I
little
don't know.
boy was riding on the property of this guy's family, and the guy told him, "Get the F off my property." And it's a little boy, so like off
5
top,
years old.
you're wrong.
Right, of course.
And clearly something's going on with him.
And you think you're friends
this.
because they're your neighbor and they were just there for dinner last night.
You're something's bigger than what's going on for you to grab a gun and shoot a little kid.
Right.
And it shouldn't be a comparison. It's like, for those people that are comparing, where is the justice for the little youngin that was playing with a toy gun in the park and the police pulled up and shot him?
Right. Right, exactly. He might have been, how old was he, 11 or 12 or something?
We could go
13?
back and forth on this.
That was Tamir Rice.
Yeah. We could go
In
back
Cleveland,
and forth
right?
on that. I think so.
My home state.
We can go back and forth, but where's the justice for all the kids that were taken away from their parents and sold into slavery?
Right, exactly.
It's like,
right.
We don't really have to compare all of them.
Right.
Each individual instance is terrible.
It is.
That black guy that shot him is terrible. That person that shot him, whether he was black, white, brown,
right,
whatever, it's still a terrible situation. It's a terrible loss. If you have a child, you can feel that, and you should be able to empathize with those people. And
right, absolutely. I mean, how heartbreaking. But to bring it into a movement that is valid, a valid movement, and what we're trying to do with the Black Lives Matter movement, supporting it, trying to keep learning and being open to learning, and supporting, white people support your black brothers and sisters in this movement. For people to bring it into that movement and make it about race, to me, is completely racist. Like, I don't think they realize how very racist they even are being. Like, this has nothing to do with it.
I wouldn't even say that it's racist, more so than just
ignorant?
nitpicking. You're nitpicking because
okay, well, you're being kind. Okay.
I mean,
I think it's racist. I think they don't. They're ignorant of their racism.
And I
their
say
personal
that because
racism. I know a lot of white people who are ignorant of their personal racism.
If you throw racism and put that label on everything, then it kind of loses its.
I know you're hesitant to do that.
Its thing.
Because
I'm not hesitant.
Because you don't want to play the race card.
No. I'm not hesitant at all. I'll call it as I see it.
Well, how can they think that this has something to do? Has anything to do with black? Because it was a.
I can partially see. If you look at the news and what's going on, there's the pandemic, there's riots, there's people are being
Chicago.
attacked. There's Chicago. People are being 100.
There are police officers being
killed.
ambushed and killed.
Police
shot
officers
and killed.
being killed.
You know, they're trying to serve and protect.
You got right wing and left wing anarchist groups meeting up and fighting. There's a lot going on in the world, so the reason
and Russia's behind it all.
There's no problem with somebody having a question of why isn't this getting more media, but there's an answer, and that's what people are missing. The answer is there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now, and that's not as big of an issue as the other things that are going on. Not to say that him being killed isn't a big issue, but it's an open and shut case. This guy came over, he killed the kid with the gun, he's going to jail. So all there is now, there shouldn't be a whole lot of media except to pour emotion into that family who just lost their kid.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it's not racist, because you should be able to ask a question. I think that when it takes the tone of, well, why isn't there media on this? Because there's media on all this other stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
It becomes a problem.
Right.
But
it becomes a problem in that. What kind of problem?
If you label it racist, and then that's when it gets blown up, and that's when somebody like Tucker Carlson can use it. Like,
okay, so we're just going to call it problematic.
White people, and there's that, and it's putting too much emphasis on something that's clearly a crime that was committed by a person that killed another person.
Okay.
If you take race out of it, then there's no need to call it racist.
Thank you for your sensibility, Patrick.
I mean, some people we're
going to call it problematic.
When you see people out in the street calling people the N-word, and like that's
blatant.
Racist. That's blatant racism. You got, you have different volumes of it that happen.
There's definitely different levels for sure.
But some people are
there's
doing
layers and layers.
I don't think that family would say anything, because right now they're in a position of just mourning that child. But the people that are jumping on the bandwagon,
yeah, it's just
they're going to do that,
right?
Just like I watch plenty of videos.
But then they use the hashtag All Lives Matter.
And that's your personal choice. I mean,
yeah,
that's your personal choice. But I watch plenty of videos where people get upset about the way that police interact with black people or interact with people in general. And it's like up to a certain point, listen, what my mom told me, and I just follow this to the best that I can, is don't resist. If you resist, you're creating more of a problem.
Right.
I'm not saying that everybody needs to believe like that. I'm not saying that my view is nonviolent, but I am saying that I know that we're in a world where if I flinch or make a move,
that's resisting.
You can say that I resisted, and that gives you reason to tase, shoot, or detain me.
Right.
So in my best interest, I'm going to do what I have to do. And so when I see some of these videos, it's like I'm screaming like, bro, stop, just stop yelling at him. Don't talk to him.
Right.
Just stop moving. He said, "You want to search you? Let him search you. If you got something, then
I know.
You put yourself in that position.
And then you get like a weed charge or a possession charge or something like that.
They plant something on you, which is not unusual.
Which, remember,
it's not
the
unusual.
car that they left that little gift for you and your with all the skulls on it on your seat.
It's not an unusual thing. So you kind of have to make the best of it. And it's hard to say what you're going to do in that moment, but you just have to really stay calm and think about how you want this situation to really be portrayed, because a lot of people will scream and say, "Oh, I'm gonna sue you," but it's like, if you're fighting and you're doing all of this stuff, unless this dude literally squared up with you and hit you in the face for no reason, you really can't fight back. It's the ultimate like turn the other cheek scenario, because if you're in a position of being shown on the video as compliant and they still do that thing to you, then you have an open and shut case as to, I'm suing this person, I'm suing this department.
Or your family does, because you might be dead.
Your family does, because you might get killed.
Right.
But if you put yourself, if you resist and you fight the police officer,
it's going to get worse.
It's going to.
They would do it. They would do it if I was resisting. Let's face it, they would. It's a resisting thing. I don't know how far they'd go, but okay.
And then I'm not saying it against people that are out protesting, and if you feel like you're in that position and you have to make that call, that's on you to make. But from what happens from there, every action is because of an action.
Yeah, every action has a reaction.
A police officer pulls you over just because he wanted to pull over a black person
chain
today.
Of events.
The first thing you should not do is start yelling at them.
Right, or be defensive. Or,
You could be defensive, but you don't
or even
start
say,
yelling at them.
Why'd you stop me, man? Or whatever.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that question. I'll ask it. What are we doing?
But you're gonna do it
But at the
respectfully.
same time, here's my license and my registration because I don't have anything to hide. You pulled me over for no reason. So
Right.
I have a right to find out what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where people kind of get that the situation, it gets muddy because people don't know how to react. And when you think about being in fear, a lot of black people, I can speak honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do anything to break the law, but if I'm riding down the street and a police officer pulls up behind me, instantly I'm like,
get tense.
oh shit, I could get pulled over for nothing. That's my experience.
Yeah, I've never thought I'm going to get pulled over and I might die. I've never thought that once.
And so you have people that are in that fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Because fear sets in. It's like
Sure.
automatically, oh God, I didn't do anything.
Self-preservation, yeah.
You're pulling me over. You could be trying to tag me as this person that,
right.
Well, you fit the description of.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Fit
know
the
why.
description.
So instantly there is a tense situation for black people, and that's what causes the situation of, he came up to the car, he's like, get the fuck out of the car, and I'm like, why are you talking to me like that? Like, I'm a person.
Right.
I'm not entitled to ask you
That's
why you're talking to me like that. But
Right.
then me asking a question is, now you're saying that me asking the question is resisting because I'm not immediately getting the fuck out of the car.
Oh, I see. Right.
No,
Okay.
It's a hard thing, man.
It is. There's so much more to talk about, but it's getting warm here, and we're starting to melt. I don't know. I think you're faring a bit better than I am.
I'm usually out here in 113 degrees.
Phew, not me. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, you all. This is Linda Ann and Patrick, and we're signing off. This was our episode 2, and I hope that you gleaned something from it, right?
Yep.
All right, buddy.